Hi, welcome to this session of the UR Sportswear period roundtable. Today's topic is going to divert a little bit off of periods which we focused on in the last couple of sessions. Today we really want to focus on the mental health aspect of being an athlete. This is such a huge consideration, and I think we all probably will have some really great insight to this discussion. So really excited to dive in. Jackie?
Yes. When we were talking about periods, we did definitely talk a lot about mental health. So we were going to go around and introduce each of us. And again, like I always say at the beginning of these, is that having a period or not having a period does not make you a woman. And also that some of these things, because we're discussing mental health, can be a little bit triggering. So if that is something that might bother you, then maybe this is an episode to skip. I'm going to start with myself, which is, if you've watched the previous episodes, you probably know that I own UR Sportswear, and my history of running is I've run since I was 12. I ran in college. I did the 800. And I'm going to actually turn it over to one of my former teammates, Katie Kelly, if you'd like to or Katie Noble, sorry, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jackie. Yes, I'm Katie Noble, formerly Katie Kelly, and I ran with Jackie at Michigan State. I was a distance runner, so I give a lot of credit to Jackie for running the 800 because literally impossible for me. I had to run the 10,000 on the track. But yeah, I have been a runner since I was 13 and ran all through high school and college, and have tried to maintain a healthier balance with running into adulthood.
And then did you want to talk a little bit about what you do actually?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I am a doctor of physical therapy, and I specialize in treating runners and endurance athletes. I really enjoy working with runners, and I really try to focus on working with young female runners, because I found that there is a gap in knowledge that I had when I was a young female runner, and that I'm seeing 2 decades later in this next generation in the clinic. So trying to get out education to fill that gap for our young female runners.
Yeah, that's very
awesome.
important.
And what area do you serve, Katie?
Oh, I live in a small town called Port Austin, Michigan, a small rural community. And I work at a local hospital up here in outpatient.
Sarah, just because you're next in my screen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Sarah Fowler. I live in Springfield, Illinois, and I'm a cross-country coach at the University of Illinois Springfield, cross-country and track. I started running in middle school, ran high school, ran throughout college. I specialize in steeplechase, pretty fun event. And now I'm currently coached by Pat McCurry, and I'm in his Idaho foot team that was just created. So big things.
Wow, that's really cool. Very cool. Erica, would you like to go next?
Yes, my name is Erica Mann, originally from Battle Creek, Michigan. I ran at Michigan State as well as a sprinter. And then now I'm pretty much into the entertainment industry. I like to go in front of the screen and then behind the screen as well. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah, you were just in a commercial, weren't you?
Yep, I was in a commercial. Yeah, just recently.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's cool to see you. Mindy?
Yes, Mindy McCutcheon. Also been running since since I was a teenager. Ran at Northern Michigan University. Also ran the steeplechase, but I did not find it as fun. I was really bad at it. Way better at just running in circles. So mainly stick to the trails these days and mix it up with a fair bit of cycling as well. So I was actually a professional cyclist for a while after I hung up my running shoes, and now I have a good mix. So welcome, my fellow Michiganders.
This is a full panel, except
for Sarah. Back to Ohio.
Okay, Midwest. All right, we got it. All right, so I'm going to open with our first question. Have you struggled with mental health as an athlete? I'm going to start with this one. For me, I definitely did struggle with mental health, but it took a while for me to figure that I was. I definitely had some kind of eating disorder, and my introduction to like, I meant to say this part, is that my introduction to like mental health was, I had an aunt who had schizophrenia, and I thought, that's what mental health is. It's like I don't want to call it an extreme, but that was kind of my introduction to it. So I didn't realize that I had a mental health issue for a long time, and a lot of like the control aspect of things, the regiment of like exercise and structure of that really hid a lot of like more anxiety that I was having and being able to manage that. And so that was kind of my experience. Katie, Kelly, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I was just in here listening to you, and I can't believe how similar I could have said that exact same thing for myself, is that mental health education is added to a long list of things that I wish I would have known when I was a young runner and starting my running career. Because I too just thought of it as something like you're either fine or you're really bad. You're depressed, you're not able to run. I had very stereotypical narrow views of what good mental health and maybe poor mental health meant. And I didn't know anything about the spectrum that existed in between. I too had eating issues in high school and college, although I never would have identified it there. It took a long time a lot of retrospection to identify that aspect of my mental health and to really kind of come to terms with that. And some aspects of mental health have come up in the literature for me recently about athletic identity, and how social media plays into athletes' mental health. And those concepts have really resonated with me. Just things that I wish I would have known back, when I was competing, when I really had a higher degree of athletic identity and less flexibility in my thinking around my training. So I really wish I would have known kind of the ins and outs of mental health, and just not if you're feeling depressed, maybe you should talk to somebody, but there's just so much more to it than that.
Yeah, and I also wish that with on top of your point, that not only us as athletes can identify it, but also those around us, the professionals around us. Like a lot of times when, especially like as college athletes, they'll have trained, doctors there, but they're not providing us with mental health specialists there as well. So, because like with mental health, it can affect you physically as well. And so I know when I was in college, I would thought my physical thing had to do with my physical health, but then figuring out that it was actually related to some of the mental struggles that I was having because I was an athlete in college. So yeah, I totally can agree with you on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I second everything you guys have said. I think I struggled more with disordered eating as a collegiate runner, because you're surrounded with so many of the same kind of disordered people when you're in that situation. But when I got to my cycling career, the food was not such an issue, but all of the other external pressures were. However, it was incredibly evident, the disordered eating amongst my teammates and other women in the peloton. I mean, you'd see women hiding food, like team purchased food, like they're hoarding bananas for the week of the race or something. I mean, like, there's no shortage of bananas. We'll go to the store and get more. It was just really, really bizarre. But like you both were saying, just I wish I knew so much more about the spectrum that exists. And Erica, like you nailed it, like the mental and the physical connection, because I started spiraling as a cyclist, and I was physically overtrained and under recovered, and going through a lot of life stuff, and just all of those different aspects accumulated to create this massive perfect storm that blew up my life. um, and it took a lot to come back from that. And if you could just, if we had those professionals out there guiding us as younger athletes, saying it's okay to be stressed out and struggle with this, let's get you some appropriate help, it could have such a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sarah, did you want to go next?
Yeah. With kind of taking in all that, one thing that I wish a connection would have been made earlier was how mental health and struggling with mental health will like literally make your performance worse. Like I always thought like I was out of shape, or like I'm not tough enough, or things like that, when I was just struggling like mentally coming back from injuries and things like that. And it's always a rush to get in shape for that next meet or that next event or next race or whatever. And not really, I don't know, people always say you only have 4 years, so you need to get everything you can out of it. But if you took the time, if someone took the time with the athletes, with me, when I was coming back, then I feel like I could have gotten more out of things, just because I would have recognized symptoms instead of like internalizing it and making it my fault, making things worse,
Right.
And
Yeah,
I do that a
it's
lot.
just like a physical injury, right? Like if you
Yeah.
hit time out
Hmm.
for 2-3 weeks or something to have that time to recover,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been such a long drawn out thing. And
Yeah, even like a couple days off. I was really lucky with a coach where like if I was struggling one day, he'd be like, all right, just go home, relax, like it's okay. And I know a lot of people weren't that lucky with as understanding coaches. And that's one thing that really ended up getting my master's in sports psychology, and I focused on eating disorders, and especially like on the male side, because like that's pretty ignored as well, with all the stigmas against mental health and men in sports and being tough and things like that. And just kind of like with my athletes, I make sure like I see everybody and not just the stereotypical people that may be suffering, and like make sure I take time to ask everybody how they're doing and really kind of make sure that like if they need a couple days, then they get a couple days, and things like that. Like I think that's such an important thing for me to do, because like I was in their shoes not that long ago. And a lot of athletes, they just need somebody who understands. And yeah, so
I wish there were more people like you around for during my career as an athlete.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
change for the good.